Coming up on today's episode of Talking NASCAR with Andrew Volkman, NASCAR has released the full 2026 schedules for the Truck, Cup, and O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. They are also considering upping the limit that Cup's guys have on how many races they can run in those lower series. And let's also take a look at the points heading into the regular season finale at Daytona. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Talking NASCAR. I am your host, Andrew. Got a lot of ground to cover today in NASCAR, and it's Steve O'Donnell, the president of NASCAR, talking about upping the limit on how many races Cup guys can run in Xfinity and Truck Series, or excuse me, O'Reilly Auto Parts Series Cup races next season. It's going to take a little while for me to get used to that, if you will. So I already talked about it in my last episode that NASCAR has found a new title sponsor for the Xfinity Series. It is O'Reilly Auto Parts. Go check out my last episode of Talking NASCAR with Andrew Volkman. You'll find that included in the episode, among other newsworthy stories that I covered in that episode. We've got a bunch of other stuff. Some court documents have just been filed by NASCAR. Not to me, of course. I'm no judge. I'm just making a metaphor there, if you couldn't tell. And the schedule for all the three series in NASCAR have been revealed. So I'm gonna look at the big changes to those schedules, and we're gonna look at the point standings for the Cup Series heading into Daytona, specifically the playoff bubble, as things are bound to shake up if there is a new winner after Daytona in the playoff standings. But let's go ahead and start with our first story of the day. The Sports Business Journal released an article 2 days ago, I believe. It was 2 days ago. Actually, no, it was yesterday that NASCAR is considering changing the limit that Cup Series drivers have on how many races they can run in both the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, or soon to be O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Craftsman Truck Series. And so NASCAR is looking to possibly up that limit from 5 races, which is the current limit right now, to possibly a little bit higher. Now, back in the day, like in the early 2000s, there was no limit on how many races Cup guys could run in the lower series. I mean, you'd have guys like Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, and Brad Keselowski running full time in the Cup Series and then running full time in the then, I believe it was the Nationwide Series. I believe I don't think it was. I think it was after the Busch Series and a little bit before another title sponsor. Definitely before Xfinity, but back then, Cup guys were going to run the full season in both Cup and the Xfinity Series, or in the lower series, the secondary series of NASCAR, and they would be contending for both championships. Like, I mean, I think Carl Edwards won the championship back in like 2007. I might be wrong on that, but you can see like how much that influenced the Xfinity series back then. I also remember this funny story that in the Xfinity Series Rookie of the Year race, like the best or the rookie was like between two drivers, and they both were not very good. Like the talent in the Xfinity Series that year was not very good. And I think Kyle Busch won the championship, or a Cup guy won the championship that year. I think that might have been 2012, maybe. But so just quick little story time with Andrew there. But I do like this move. I don't think that NASCAR will probably go to the old limit of no restrictions on how many races Cup guys can run. I would like to see, though, that the limit is lifted a little bit, maybe to 10, possibly. I think another way around this is that you lift the limit on Cup guys can only run regular season Xfinity or Truck Series races. I think you can open up to playoff races because that allows teams to play spoiler, kind of like how non-playoff drivers in the Cup Series playoffs can win races and kind of make a little bit of an upset and spoil the playoffs and kind of take away the shine and put it on them for a change in those races. So I could see that being kind of a way around it, and I think that'd be a really cool thing. And I think that's just an easy fix. You don't have to up the limit, like maybe to 7 races, add 2 more, maybe to 10 would be acceptable. Because right now, there's only 2 guys that I can think of that have run or actually met their limit in the series. I think Ross Chastain has run enough races both in the Truck Series and with Junior Motorsports. I think he actually might have done both with Nice Motorsports in the Truck Series and with Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series. And there's some other guys in there that have done that. They've met their limit, but there's only 2 of them I think there's one other them. I can't really remember who it is, but only 2 drivers have met that limit. So right now, I guess Cup guys aren't really in the running to make Xfinity starts unless they really want to. Like, I know Hendrick Motorsports has got their own Xfinity team with guys like Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson all making starts every now and then. I think Byron won Charlotte in the Xfinity series, like the Coca-Cola 600 weekend race. But besides that, haven't been many Cup Series winners. Like Kyle Larson lost to Sam Mayer, or like lost at Homestead, Miami in an Xfinity Series start, and missed his sweep of the whole weekend, which would have been the first time he'd done that since Kyle Busch at Texas, I believe. I believe it was Texas or Kansas. But anyway, like right now, with the Xfinity Series as it is, I don't think Cup Series would be really getting in the way of that. And I think the Xfinity Series drivers would all have their talent on display. So I'm all for having the limit on Cup Series drivers and how many races they can run in the lower series upped a little bit. Again, I think an easy way to fix this is that you can have these Cup guys run playoff races and maybe up the limit by 2 or 3, maybe to 5 races more than what we have currently now, making that total to 7, 8, or 10. Somewhere in that range, I feel like is the perfect spot. But we're just gonna have to wait and see what NASCAR and President Steve O'Donnell have in mind and what they might do to the lower series in that limit. I actually want to read a quote real quick from what the Sports Business Journal article real quick. I believe this is Steve O'Donnell, president of NASCAR, saying this. He said, quote, "You look at all of our series and we've had limits on. Could a Cup driver compete? How many races could they compete? So we've certainly had discussions with the CW and the Truck Series as well. Does that rule, as it stands, now make the most sense to continue as it is? Do we tweak it? So we're looking at a lot of things over the offseason and talking to a lot of the teams and drivers." So listening to this, that's probably most likely the CW, maybe Fox going to NASCAR and saying, "Hey, maybe our having the Cup Series guys in those races kind of upped our ratings." I most likely see that as a CW thing. Don't know for sure, but it makes sense that it would probably be the CW, the first time that the Xfinity Series has its own channel on broadcast television, having their say in a thing, I guess. So this is big for the Xfinity Series. It's probably what the CW wants to happen. So again, you've heard my thoughts, or heard my thoughts, I should say. So we'll just have to wait and see again what this comes to be, what NASCAR decides to do with this potential rule change. Now, moving on before we get to the new 2026 National Series schedules, we have another little bit of a court and antitrust case development. NASCAR has made a bunch of filings over this past week. I believe on Monday they submitted all the stuff. We got this all alerted on Tuesday, yesterday. So I'm going to talk about a bit of it because there's quite a lot of stuff here. Most of it is NASCAR saying that they are not going to really care and they can do whatever they want with 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports charters, mostly because they have not agreed to the current charter agreement that the teams, besides 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, are currently agreed to. That they have not agreed to that, so therefore they do not want to do business with that. So I'll get to that a little bit more in a second. But first, NASCAR made a filing saying that they are not a monopoly, and here are the reasons why. Because NASCAR is stated on Monday that it is not a monopoly because the teams are allowed to race in the Cars Tour, a late model touring series that is owned by Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Burton, and Kevin Harvick and Justin Marks. As well, NASCAR said, quote, "In addition to the long list of exceptions, which include every major known racing organization and sanctioning body in North America, the goodwill provisions in the 2016 and 2025 charters also allow the team owners to seek NASCAR's approval to race in other series." NASCAR also states that they have not withheld any opportunities from these teams and have not denied them any of their approvals to race in these other racing leagues, I guess. And that 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports have never even come to NASCAR to ask them to even race in other racing series. So that doesn't make sense on NASCAR's thought and side of things. NASCAR also said, quote, NASCAR has never withheld approval from any charter holder, including direct and indirect team owners, as defined by the 2016 and 2025 charters, to race in any other stock car series or any other racing series. So NASCAR is basically saying there that you can't place the blame on us if you've never even come to us to even talk about that with us. And I would say that is a pretty valid rebuttal from NASCAR. And I'd be very interested to know whether Denny Hamlin or Michael Jordan have even come to NASCAR in recent years to even ask their permission to go race in other series. Because as far as I know, I don't think Denny Hamlin has really any interest in dirt racing that I know of. I don't think he's a full time dirt racer like his teammates Bell or Briscoe. And then Michael Jordan, I don't know how much he knows about dirt racing. So who knows how much they know? And uh, uh, the other co-owner of 2311 Racing, uh, I don't know, Curtis Polk. I don't know what he thinks about other series in racing. I think of him mostly as a businessman. So I don't know what any of those guys are really looking at for possible series. And I'd be very interested to know again if Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin or Bob Jenkins have even gone to NASCAR to ask for their approval. And same with other Cup Series teams if they want to go race in other series. I mean, you got to think teams like Hendrick Motorsports, who have signed Corey Day to development deals, or Conor Zilic, like, they have those guys to develop. They have them go race on dirt, especially Corey Day, who is a dirt racer, or maybe guys like Jade Avedision, who has been uh, part of a Toyota development deal, who is a dirt racer and actually making her first starts in ARCA coming up in a couple weeks. So I I severely doubt that NASCAR and those teams have not come together and asked, hey, can we go help these drivers that we are developing pursue their goals of being in the Cup Series by having them develop on dirt or an ARCA or an other series of racing. So that's NASCAR's rebuttal on what they think on being claimed to be called a monopoly of stock car racing. But let's go ahead and move on to the more business side of these filings that NASCAR made. In this filing on Monday, NASCAR states that they are, quote, are many eager potential entrants who want to obtain Cup Series charters and possibly race in the NASCAR Cup Series in either next year's season or in coming year's season. And I want to remind everybody that the preliminary injunction that 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are currently pursuing, which will have a hearing scheduled on August 28th, so in 8 days at the time of this recording, that if it is denied and goes in favor of NASCAR, that NASCAR can officially start the process of selling these charters of 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports to other teams. Because at that point, those charters are not owned by Michael Jordan, Denny Hamlin, or Bob Jenkins anymore after their first preliminary injunction that was granted back in January, which did allow 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports to race as charter teams for the entire 2025 season, was denied, I believe, back in July or June, maybe. I don't exactly remember. This lawsuit's gone along a very long time, guys. You got to give me some leeway for not remembering one or two things that happened in this timeline. Another curveball that was announced by NASCAR is that since both teams acquired charters from the now debunked Stewart Haas Racing, owned by Tony Stewart and Gene Haas, since they acquired charters from both those teams, if this injunction does go in favor of NASCAR and it is denied by the court and not in favor of the teams, that a 30-day bidding process could open up for qualified existing chartered teams. So essentially, teams like Richard Childress Racing, if they want to purchase a third charter, they could go ahead and bid on that charter. And once that 30-day bidding time has ended, most likely they would get it, or how whatever the highest price goes for, NASCAR can sell it to them. That's basically what they're saying here. And to end off this filing, NASCAR announced to the court that the court cannot force the sanctioning body to do any business with these teams, saying that NASCAR no longer wants to do business with teams that are suing them. So therefore, NASCAR and the sanctioning body are fielding inquiries from other teams, like possibly Truck Series teams or Xfinity Series teams, on whether offers are on the table and what offers may be out there for these charters to potentially be sold to them. And they are asking the court not to accept or give the teams a preliminary injunction, saying that the teams 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports have no legal rights over the charters they never agreed to terms over, and therefore will forfeit them on December 31st. So, all in all, here, NASCAR is saying that we are not going to do business with these teams because they never really agreed to accept the terms that come with owning these charters here. So, this is a pretty big curveball and could potentially pose some risks for the teams. Like we've all thought that could happen and know that could happen. And we now know can and probably will happen if this injunction is denied by the courts and does not go in favor of 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports. But now let's move on to the 2026 National Series schedules that were just revealed by NASCAR today. However, Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic actually uh, leaked the schedule once again for the second consecutive year yesterday on Tuesday. So NASCAR released the official schedule today, and we were all like, oh, there's the official press release by NASCAR. But this did include the Xfinity and Truck Series schedule, so I'll point out the big dates for all those series right now. Starting out with the Cup Series schedule, we already knew that Bowman Gray Stadium would be the the Cookout Clash. Excuse me, I keep saying the Busch Light Clash. It's the Cookout Clash or the Clash or whatever you want to call it. So it will be at Bowman Gray Stadium on February 1st. Some other notable dates on Sunday, March 1st. NASCAR will be returning to Circuit of the Americas. I know for a little while earlier in the year that was a little bit of a cause for question and concern if NASCAR was going to be returning to that track, but it looks like for now we will. Kansas has also been moved up into the schedule year onto Sunday, April 19th. Will be after Bristol Motor Speedway on April 12th and 1 week before Talladega on April 26th. As well, Watkins Glen has been moved up to Sunday, May 10th, a little bit earlier in the year. And I know a lot of people are kind of frustrated with this. I'm okay with it. I think that I never actually heard that Watkins Glen in August can be pretty hot. So maybe moving it up into May will make it a little bit cooler up there in Watkins Glen, New York. And as well, Dover, like we've all heard, will be moved to the All Star race on May 17th. I've made my thoughts known on it. I talked about it in my last episode. Go check it out if you want to hear my thoughts more extensively there. But I'll say it again. Dover, feel bad for the Dover fans. Dover does not deserve this. I think Dover really doesn't put on that good of a racing product to really deserve to go up for an exhibition race compared to North Wilkesboro, who has been moved to Dover's date Sunday, July 19th on TNT, which is a good date for TNT. The first point series race since 1996. Uh, Pretty good date for TNT. But back to Dover, just the racing product doesn't really justify an All Star date. If anything, the racing product should still have a point series date, and it's not that good. But I don't know. I'm kind of milking the idea that it doesn't deserve a point series, or I mean, an all star date because the racing product isn't as good as North Wilkesboro Speedway. But that's just my opinion on that. But then we got San Diego Naval Base Coronado on Sunday, June 21st, the final rate or final scheduled race for Prime Video. Sonoma has been swapped with Echo Park Speedway for the in-season challenge presented by TNT. So that'll be on Sunday, June 28th. That will kick off the in-season challenge. And Atlanta Echo Park Speedway has been moved back 2 dates to Sunday, July 12th. But another big one is Chicagoland Speedway is back on the schedule, and it will be on June 5th, 4th of July weekend on TNT, the second race in the in-season challenge. But after that, there will be a second off weekend after the Brickyard 400, which will conclude the in-season challenge after July 26th. That will be 1 week off. New Hampshire has been moved out of the playoffs this season. Will be on August 23rd on USA/NBC. As well, Kansas has been moved up into the opening race of the round of 12, followed by Las Vegas and the Roval. The Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval is still on the schedule. Very surprising. I thought that the Roval would be off the schedule, but uh, appears not. So maybe next year will be the year. But besides that, the round of 8, which has a little bit of a shakeup this year, will consist of Phoenix, Talladega on Sunday, October 25th, and then Martinsville for the Xfinity 500, and will conclude with the championship race on November 8th at Homestead Miami Speedway. So that is the Cup Series schedule, those are all the big dates. Don't really have a problem with any of them. I think they're all pretty good moves. The one thing is Dover and the All-Star race. I think you can find a definitely better racetrack for the All-Star race, or just get rid of the All-Star race altogether. One of those two. Also, there are 2 off weekends now in the Cup Series schedule. I forgot to mention that. So there's gonna be 2, which will be much appreciated throughout the garage, I believe, of the drivers and the teams as well. But moving on to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, nothing really sticks out. Mostly just all the same stuff that the Cup Series will be going to. Besides that, nothing really new. No new tracks on there. They're kind of all going to the same tracks. They're going to go to San Diego for Naval Base Coronado. They're going to be going to Rockingham once again next season. They'll be going to Chicagoland as well on the 4th of July, actually. So that's a pretty good date for the Xfinity Series, or sorry, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. But yeah, nothing really looks any different compared to the Cup Series. Just there's more off weekends for all these Xfinity drivers. So this Xfinity Series, nothing really looks any different. The regular season finale will be at Gateway on September 12th, and the playoffs will kick off at Bristol Motor Speedway and will end at Homestead, Miami for the championship race once again. Now, moving on to the Truck Series, we got a big change. Instead of going to Circuit Americas for the 3rd race of the season, the Truck Series will head to the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg in Florida. That is a very interesting track. But I do kind of like it. It's a little bit closer to home for some of these Truck Series teams. It's on the East Coast instead of them having to travel all the way to Austin, Texas. So that could be a potential benefit. I'm interested to see what the racing product will be there. But besides that, they'll be heading to Rockingham as well. Looking at it, they'll be heading to San Diego for Naval Base Coronado. All 3 teams or series will be represented there. They'll also be returning to Lime Rock Park on July 11th after an off week. So, Truck Series, I think they put on a pretty good showing there, besides Corey Heim dominating the whole thing. So, that'll be interesting. And again, nothing really crazy. They'll also be going to the Roval. So, I think I'll be very interested to see that race as well. But not really many big changes to the schedule for the Truck Series. They do have a pretty lengthy off week after the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg from February 28th all the way to March 20th before they return at Darlington. So very interesting to say the least about the Truck Series schedule. But those are all the big takeaways I have for the Truck Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Cup Series schedules. Let me know down in the comments what you think of these big changes. Do you think the NASCAR should have done more to change the schedules? Personally, in my opinion, I think they did a lot to change the schedules, and I think it's pretty cool. But now to end off this episode, let's take a look at the NASCAR Cup Series playoff bubble. Right now, Tyler Reddick and Alex Bowman are the final 2 drivers in after Austin Dillon's win at Richmond. Reddick in by 89, Bowman in by 60, and the first driver out is now Chris Buescher, who is out by 60 points on Alex Bowman. Then Priest out by 94. Busch is the next driver out by 149. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's no way they can point their way in. No, they can't. But so a new winner will have to be needed for one of these guys to get into the playoffs. So Gibbs, Busch, Priest, Buescher, Allmendinger, Keselowski, all those guys are going to have to win their way into the playoffs. However, if there is a new winner at Daytona, say like Harrison Burton last year for the Wood Brothers, the bubble between Reddick and Bowman right now is very interesting. Reddick has only a 29-point advantage over Alex Bowman. So if there is a new winner like Buescher or Priest or Busch, or someone down in the 30s like Cole Custer, Riley Herbst, Cody Ware, possibly, if any of those guys win, the bubble battle will be very, very fierce between Bowman and Reddick, because those are only 29 points separating those two heading into Daytona. But anything can happen in Daytona. We're just have to wait and see how the race unfolds. But that will about do it for this episode, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed, leave a like if you're listening on YouTube as well. If you enjoyed any of the things that you heard, if you like NASCAR, consider subscribing to the channel if you're listening on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, consider giving us a follow so you don't miss another episode of Talking NASCAR. Also, go check out Talking Sports with Miles and Andrew, the other show I co-host with. A lot of fun over there. But besides that, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed once again, and I will see you very, very soon for the next episode of Talking NASCAR with Andrew Volkman. Take care, everybody.